Are you connecting all the dots on the journey to your inner wisdom? Are you looking for a fresh perspective on the messages you've been asking for?
So who doesn't want to be happier, healthier, wealthier, and wiser, and be able to make life's choices with confidence because they finally see the signs? We know you do.
I'm Angela Coulter.
And I'm Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
We're two conscious journeyers dedicated to turning over those rocks and helping you on your personal intuitive sleuthing mission of evolution in our multi-dimensional hologram.
And that includes Earth too.
Yes, it does. Welcome to Solving Me, our conscious puzzle-solving podcast, where we look at the natural relation between your life experiences and their meaning in the bigger picture, from the most mundane to the most overwhelming.
So what do we mean by all this? Well, have you ever thought that getting a flat tire and twisting your ankle could be related? And maybe a message about what's preventing you from getting that awesome, high-paying job you would love. Believe it or not, it's all connected.
Want to know more? Come on and let's get sleuthing. See what comes up in this episode, because it might just be about you. Welcome to episode 33. So, we are extremely pleased to talk about this today.
How appropriate.
Our topic is on extremes and how the extremes can be messages to us. And it's something that we typically overlook, as many of the topics we are discussing are. But in fact, when we were first talking about it, I wrote it down. And then before we got on, we were talking about what we're talking about. And then Sarah said, oh, this, and this. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's a huge topic. Okay. Because we were just sort of blind to it. We are so used to a culture of extremes, especially in the United States.
Oh, exactly. It's the only way to get your attention is through the extremes, which, how perfect for a message, something that's trying to get your attention. It's gone from the whisper to the shout.
Well, and it sort of continues on, now that I see it, continues on from our previous episode having to do with conversations and words, where we were talking about how there's so much going on in so many different levels. Sometimes we have to have that really loud message, and that's the extreme.
Yep. Oh, I love that. But, initially we were talking about extremes in diets. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's becoming extreme. And extremes in exercise, which again, extreme. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I have to, walk 15 miles a week so that I can take a day off, or which, there's you in an extreme swing right there. Mm-hmm. Dieting. Well, I can only have water.
Well, obesity.
Yes.
What's the other word?
Anorexic.
For some reason, the word anesthesia was coming. I was like, that's not the right word, anorexic. So, those are extremes.
They are.
And they're huge messages, because when we have something, so here's the thing that we don't think of as extreme. When we have something that comes up in our body, usually an injury or an illness, especially if it's chronic or emergent, where we are stopped dead in our tracks, that's an extreme in itself.
It is. And that's almost been relegated to normal.
And why is that?
Oh, well, it's just where we are.
Yeah.
It's just where we are. And, for instance, the things that are relegated to, well, that's normal for your age, or that's normal for your level of exercise, or that's normal for, the stress you put yourself under. Mm-hmm. When you take an extreme and you normalize it, you're negating the message.
Well, then you're going to have to make it get more extreme.
You're going to have to make it get louder. You're going
to have to. No, thank you.
Right. Exactly. And another way to look at extremes is, what am I running away from by being this extreme?
Yes, because here's the thing, and that's what many don't recognize, and they don't like listening to this. They don't like hearing this either,
No.
because it's, even though it's not said with any judgment, because we all have done it.
In some form or another. Absolutely.
When we go to an extreme on something, and that can be victimhood, right? It can be injury, illness, victimhood interrelated with that. It can be martyrdom. It could be food and exercise. It could be money,
shopping,
yes,
gambling,
or having or not having in extremes.
Yes.
They can be. So when that happens, that means sometimes that we are so uncomfortable with what's underneath it, that we're creating this diversion that's taking all of our energy to manage that, so that we don't have to look at the other part. And we just say, because then we accept that culturally and say, oh, I get it. Yeah, it's everything you can do to just go through a day.
Yep. Oh, I completely understand. And I don't blame you. I'd be the same way. And that's essentially saying, I agree. I agree you're doing the right thing because you're paying attention to this, not this.
And we've lost the understanding, or lost the conscious realization that we're just looking to each other to appease each other for ignoring the message that's underneath what it is.
Right.
So when I talk to somebody and say, well, what's this message? And I don't say it with judgment at all. And this includes rape and abduction, abuse, and things like that. And there's no judgment on any of that. There is a message. There's a reason that's there in the reality. As we have said in many other episodes, I don't think we've said it in several episodes now, but having is evidence of wanting. If we have it in our reality, it's A, to show us something, or B, something we wouldn't have looked at otherwise if we did not create that extreme situation, or redirect ourselves in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
And so we have nobody to blame but ourselves.
Right. And no one to listen to but ourselves. Mm-hmm. Because we're the crafter of the message, and we're the crafter of the delivery method as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes. As much as being the recipient. So
absolutely.
There's a trifecta. For episode 33, there's your trifecta. Right there's your trinity.
Exactly. So, and we've talked about the different extremes. I mean, we've talked about the extremes in weather. Mm-hmm. We've talked about, all the different places that extremes can show up. And I mean, okay, so we've had an episode on colors, which is not that many episodes ago, but you can start looking at, okay, this color keeps showing up. That's an extreme.
Well, especially when it comes up all over and it just starts being peppered into everything you do.
Exactly. I mean, it's just, there's so many different applications of this particular topic with extremes. Even if it's an extreme of, anytime you say only or have to, that's an indication of, okay, that's setting up to be an extreme.
Yes. Because you're saying, I'll only do this when this happens.
I can only eat this. Or I have to exercise this.
Yes. But just today, I was talking to somebody who is very conscious, very aware of the energetic influence of our physicality. And she was extremely frustrated with the physical problems that she was having that have been really amped up lately. And she's sitting there, we're having this conversation, and she knows me, so that I'm going to sit there and get to the underlying thing that she's talking about. Oh, well, I don't know if a disc is out of line, or if this is out of line, or if there's what my physical thing is. And I said to her, but have you looked at what the non-physical part of it is? Because there's something in there. And then as soon as I started pressing on that, mm-hmm, the tears came.
Right.
And I said, but this is also becomes so extreme because you've managed it so well, right? And this is what we do. Okay. And it goes back to the ego liking its precious and not wanting to give up
Right.
some certain things that it puts in its identity. So it says, okay, well, I'll give up this and I'll let go of this and I'll change this, but I don't want to let go of this. So I'm just going to hide it. And then we figure I'm going to manage it. I'm just going to manage it so I can go on with my life, even if it's there, right? So whether
I'm going to accommodate it. I'm going to accommodate its needs.
Yes. So whether it's to take a pill every day or to do this kind of therapy every day or do whatever and manage it, then I don't have to look at it until it stops being able to be managed anymore, which eventually is what happens. Almost every time. So I had that myself. And I still to this day don't know what the specific was about it, but I had that tooth problem, going back to our tooth episode, where I had that tooth for years, that I had something under it, the crown broke off. I had to put back on. Underneath it, I started getting a pus pocket on my gum.
Right.
And so they wanted for me to get another root canal or whatever. And I was like, no. And so here's the very physical part. So this is what happens, is what we do. And this is from me being completely conscious of this stuff. No, I'll just manage it. I'll do oil pulling. I will take oil of oregano. I'll do this. I'll do that. And it did manage it very well. And then one day, a couple of years down the road, I was like, wait a minute. I don't want to have to do this the rest of my life. I don't want to have to manage this. This is taking up energy that I can be using elsewhere.
Right.
So it's time for me to look at what this is about and resolve it and take care of it.
Right. And it's that reminds me of our obsession with managing symptoms versus just getting to the root cause of something. Mm-hmm. And, I've got issues with my hands, which again was another episode. And it's like, oh, but if I massage it like this, or I stretch it like this when I get up, then I'm good. And it's like, well, and I'm good for, in the beginning, it was like, I'm good for the day. And then I'll just do it again tomorrow. And then it was like, well, I'm good till like dinner. And then, I'll just do it again. And then it's like, okay, I can make it to lunch. And then it's like, well, every hour I'm finding that I'm needing to do this, which is the same as saying I'm willing to accommodate its discomfort versus let me just find out what this is.
And that's what we do all the
time.
Get
to the message.
Mm-hmm.
And that extreme of that, and it's self-care and it's this and it's this. Well, it's managing the symptoms to an extreme point versus, okay, let me just get to the message here.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so that's where we can support ourselves in the physical, because we do have many ways of supporting ourselves. But, it's like somebody I know who always had problems in their women parts, right? So in their sacral chakra.
Right.
At an early age had a tumor on their ovary that was benign, had to have one ovary removed. Then had endometriosis, had to have scar tissue removed. Right. Then eventually had to have the other ovary removed because there was another benign tumor. And all of it, and then ended up having to get a complete hysterectomy in her 50s. And it was gone. Everything was gone. And it was like several years later, and she started getting pains there again and said to me, why? I got everything taken out. I have nothing left. Why am I still getting pains or weird things? And I said, have you looked at what you're holding on to there that's causing you to manifest that in your sacral area? I got dead silence. I'm like, okay, well, you can continue on this way. Or
right.
You can look at it. But that's what we do. And we chalk it up to genetics. Okay, well, guess what? That's where we skip over to soul agreements of, okay, well, I'm going to learn like, and I'm going to take the familial lesson of learning lessons through this particular ailment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I have to use, that's what I have to use as my projections in life and learning and growth. We can change that. We can get rid of all that. But if we're not looking at it, you know, it's a moot point. It's just going to get louder and louder and louder. And that's where we develop things like chronic illness and cancers and all kinds of things, like accidents, big car accidents, or some kind of accident that lays us up. And
Which is another episode.
Yes. All these things tie in together. All extremes. And so there's nothing to judge here. In fact, I still do it. And so what happens is as we go along in consciousness and we're used to seeing these messages and adjusting, coming to gratitude, adjusting our realities, the extremes tend to, I'm not saying that's a rule, the extremes tend to get smaller or less frequent.
Right.
The more we commit to that consciousness, but there's still no judgment, because there have been times when a big one comes seemingly out of nowhere. And you're like, well, how did I not see that before?
Right.
But it's like, well, I had to let go of the energy of all these other distractions and these extremes that I had created to distract me, so that then it could finally hit me that way. So I could have it I could not mistake it in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing to look at in your life. What do you have that you feel like is an extreme? And it can be extreme sacrifice. Like Sarah said, martyrdom. We do that with parenthood. Parenthood is a great extreme that we have created in terms of sacrificing and ignoring things about ourselves so that we can tend to the children.
Well, and then you take that once you get that sense of relief from that extreme, then it's the extreme caregiver of the parent that then steps into that role of needing taken care of. And, you know, it becomes that little whisper of, well, you kind of owe them because they took care of you. And then you can turn that into an extreme.
Yes. So the key here is looking at things in your life that you put a lot, how about this? Just something you put a lot of energy into managing every day.
Yes.
Those are your extremes. Those are the things that are sapping you of your energy, and they are distracting you from what's underneath.
And I know for myself, I have to look and make sure that I'm not confusing things that I'm putting my energy to in as an extreme versus it's my passion.
Yes.
And it naturally flows in a particular direction. And to me, that is, sometimes I confuse things that I would take to an extreme. But I'm passionate about that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, I'm passionate about it because I have a hidden trigger.
Yes.
That I don't want to look at.
Yes. I've said that to many people who are, say, like animal activists and stuff like that. Yep. And I say, okay, so, well, it just triggers you. Well, if there's a trigger, there means there's something underneath it, right? So it can't just be that you're passionate. Yes, you can be passionate about them, but that you sacrifice everything in your life so that you can do this rescue, or you could do this for the animals is.
And I limit myself to accommodate that. That is not living your passion. Mm-hmm. That is living in avoidance of something.
In desperate avoidance of something.
Yes. Yes.
So, that just opened up a whole other doorway. And I was like, yep, now we're running out of time for this episode. So
I know. That was a big slip in at the end.
So sit with that though, and think about those things like Sarah was talking about. That is a really big one. That's a big extreme. When we're called to be active, be into activism mode about something, and we are, like, I'm going to die on the pedestal for this. And there's a trigger underneath it, instead of just, like you're saying, flowing with passion, flowing with ease of, this is who I am.
Right.
versus getting triggered to saying, well, I'm doing this, because of the idiots who are not doing this and da 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 da. So
yeah,
very different flavors entirely.
right. And
So,
as always, share.
yes.
Talk to us. Tell us what you think.
We share ours with you. We want to hear you sharing yours with us. So we hope to hear from you. Thanks for listening to us on Solving Me. If you found this podcast helpful, make sure to subscribe so you get notice every time we post a new episode.
And for a short time, we have a special bonus for you. Go to solvingme.net to download your free ebook, which outlines the next level of conscious solutions for your inner investigation.
Be sure to help us spread the word. Share us with others you know who want to solve the puzzles of their everyday life through the filter of expanded consciousness and have fun doing it.
One more thing. Do you have some puzzling life circumstances where you feel blocked and you'd like our take on what's going on? Send us your conscious puzzle at connect@solvingme.net, and maybe you'll be the topic of a future episode.
Until next time, happy sleuthing.